are you all doing with the smoky air? I think we're all a little congested a little bit. But yet you came. You still came to church. What faith, that you still come to church. Whether it's convenient or inconvenient, you come. Why do you come? Because of this feast, among others. The promise of the risen Christ being with us always. The Feast of CorpusChristi and the action that it has on the believing community of the body of Christ is one that is always going to be a bit of a mystery. And it was from the very beginning. How can this man give us his flesh to eat? And so when we realize that is a mystery, we're not going to understand it all completely. And in fact, even the church, the theologians of the church, when they say, how is Christ present in the Eucharist? Guess what their answer is? In a real way. That's a theological answer, in a real way. If you're used to Karl Rahner trying to describe the Trinity, this is an extremely simple explanation. And what it simply says is, don't get caught up too much in concerning about what's happening to the bread and the wine. That's not something that the disciples ever worried about. What they were looking at is what was happening to the community that was being fed by the bread and the wine. And so just as Christ transforms in the Last Supper, this permanent memorial, it's meant so that we might become what we receive to transform the church. And that has to do with us realizing that we are loved and the power of the presence of Christ. But this whole idea of being loved is very important, and the memory of love is very important. There is this poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay that says, it's the 30th sonnet. It says, love is not all. Doesn't really mean that. But she gives a couple contradictions of things that love can't do. She says, love is not all. It is not meat, nor drink, nor slumber, nor a roof against the rain, nor yet a floating spar to men that sink and rise and sink and rise and sink again. Love cannot fill the thickened lung with breath, nor clean the blood, nor set the fractured bone. Yet many a one is making friends with death, even as I speak, for lack of love alone. It well may be that in a difficult hour, pinned down by pain and moaning for release, or nagged by want past resolution's power, I might be driven to sell your love for peace, or trade the memory of this night for food. It well may be. I do not think I would. The memory of this night, that's Corpus Christi. That's the Last Supper. That's the permanent meal memorial sacrifice. And the command, do this, why? In memory of me. And so the gift of presence is given, the power of presence is given to us. Why is this memory so important? Now, I never thought for the life of me that I ever would be quoting from this particular movie at a Mass. But I'm 46 years a priest. What can they do to me, But this is, remember Casablanca? Remember the whole struggle with that, especially the ending? Who's going to get on the plane? What's going to happen? And so Rick, Humphrey Bogart, speaking to Ilsa, says, last night we said a great many things. I'm not going to do the whole thing like that, but you get the idea, right? It says, you said I was to do the thinking for both of us. Well, I've done a lot of it since then, and it all adds up to one thing. You're getting on that plane with Victor, where you belong. But Richard, no, now you've got to listen to me. You have any idea what you'd have to look forward to if you stayed here? 9 chances out of 10, we'd both wind up in a concentration camp. Isn't that true, Louis? I'm afraid Major Strasser would insist. You're saying this only to make me go. I'm saying it because it's true. Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, and for the rest of your life. But what about us? We'll always have Paris. The memory of Paris, the memory of Innocent Vincent Millet's hymn, a poem, which could be a hymn, about how important love is. And this is the thing that is why the church is renewed always by the breaking of the bread and the sharing of the scriptures and the sharing of the cup, because we need to remember we are loved and what work we have to do as part of that love. And when Jesus says, do this in remembrance of me, he doesn't just mean remember me. What he means is, when you remember me, what does that do for you? What does that do to you? And what it says, we will follow. We will act. We are empowered by the presence of Christ. And then so the church is really born around the table of the Eucharist. It's an incredible, incredible thing. But the memory of it is what is so important. Casablanca has that reference to, 9 out of 10, we both wound up in concentration camps. And as I was reflecting on what is it about the Feast of Corpus Christi that makes it so wonderful, and so I better read this because I should have written down, it'll be clearer. In reflecting on how to talk about the very personal, rather than the more abstract theological meaning of this feast, that meaning being that Christ is really present, not merely physically, not merely symbolically, not merely as a memorial referentially. Oh yeah, Jesus, right? Remember him? Or as a pledge of abiding in future covenantal presence, but truly, truly present. All of these, physically present, emotionally present, spiritually present, historically, continually present. And present not only in the actions of Christ in history, but in the actions of the risen Lord, present in the minds and hearts of the mystical body of Christ, which we are as a people of God who resolve to believe and to act even when faith is stressed. Now, I found a blogger, Debbie Simons, who wrote the text of who asked, who wrote the text of even when he is silent? And that's the phrase that came to me. Remember that? And it's a song, as a matter of fact, but it comes from some writings that were found, that were left behind by people who were hiding from the concentration camp. And it was, I believe in the sun even when it is not shining. I believe in love even when I feel it not. I believe in God even when he is silent. And while the mythology around this particular text was that perhaps it was written in a concentration camp, it seems to be the reality that the words come from a primary source that is the original. And it was the unnamed concentration camp as idea above, the Warsaw Ghetto, a cave or a cellar in Cologne. The last one turned out to be correct, the cellar in Cologne. And so here's the original story. In the town's underground passageways, long forgotten, which had been unused for many years under old buildings, that had been remembered during the war, and these could now serve in secret for the refugees from the Gestapo. And it says at one point, 9 Jewish fugitives hid here for 4 months without ever being caught. And then when the person went back to visit the shelter, he says, I had the opportunity to see the emergency housing, fully equipped with a kitchen, bedroom, living room, small library, oil lamps, evidence of a stunning experience. Meals could only be prepared at night so as not to attract the Gestapo's attention, who would have noticed the smoke during the day. Food had to be supplied by friends, who willingly gave up a portion of their rations to help those. unfortunate people, living for weeks underground in utter darkness. And so this is where that saying comes from. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. I believe in God, though he be silent. I believe in neighborly love, though it be unable to reveal itself. Isn't that amazing? I believe in neighborly love, even when it is unable to reveal itself. Sometimes, when things are falling apart, we ask ourselves, well, why doesn't God do something? But then there's also part of people's activity in their mind also says, dear God, instead of dear God, do something, dear God, let us do something. Tell us what you want us to do. And so when he says, do this in memory of me, it's not just break the bread. It's not just read the scriptures. It's not just share the cup. It's all that I have done, you do. Do all of this in memory of me. Feed the hungry. Take care of the widow and the orphan. Clothe the naked. Welcome the stranger. Visit the sick. Visit those in prison. This do in memory of me. And by this, all shall know that you are my disciples.